Okay, so there seems to be a common misconception that setting up DLU for native Windows is an arduous task, if not impossible, and I am here to set the record straight. So I'm here on a clean install of Windows. I just have the necessities here. I'm using Firefox as my web browser, Notepad++ as my text editor, Edge, Chrome, whatever will work, and then you can just use Notepad. Doesn't matter. So first thing, you're going to need a client. I can't tell you where to get this client. You're just going to have to figure it out yourself. Sorry about that. It's preferably it would be unpacked because that makes it a lot easier to set up the server. If it's packed, you're going to need to extract a bunch of assets and that's no fun. So first, before we forget, we're going to apply the AG survival fix, which is listed under survival in the DLU README. We're going to go to res scripts AI minigame survival, and then we're going to want this file. So depending on where you got this file might be read-only by default. I'm going to set it to not read-only. And then I'm going to open it, go to 617, just like it says in the README, and we're going to change player ready to on player ready. And now we have the fun part, which is actually building DLU. So we're going to need a few pieces of software to do this. First of them, we're going to need Git. So, whoops, we just need to install Git for Windows. So I'm going to Google Git. This is going to be the first result. And we are going to download the installer for Windows. While we're doing that, we're also going to need a piece of software called DB Browser for SQLite. We're also going to download the installer for this. Then we are going to need Python. So we're going to go to python.org. And we are going to download the latest version for Windows. You're also going to need a piece of software called, I'm going to pronounce it XAMPP. I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce it. I've only seen it spelled out. This is to run our database. Gonna get the latest version, whatever. Then we're also going to need Visual Studio, which you may have heard of before. So we're going to download the Community Edition. And it's going to give us a setup file. Now I'm going to install Visual Studio first because its setup is the most complicated. It's going to give you this installer file. You're going to run it. You're going to agree to all its licensing crap. Then you're going to wait. Okay, so we need to select desktop development with C++. If you do not select this, you will not have a good time. We're going to notice that it's going to take 8.24 gigabytes, and we are going to install it. Okay, so now that that's done, we are going to install Python, which also has some special steps that you're going to need to follow. Gonna run it. and make sure you select Add Python to Path. If you don't select that, you will also not have a very good time. I'm going to say yes to whatever it wants, and we're going to let it install. While it's doing its thing, I'm also just going to install Git. Just going to kind of click through this, and then I'm going to give it a desktop icon because I feel like it. I don't like using Vim, I like using Notepad++. Click through this. I like using the Windows default console, so I'm going to select that. You can just select whatever you want here, it doesn't matter. Just going to keep clicking through, and I'm going to install it. Now this install for Visual Studio may take quite a bit of time depending on what, how good your internet is, how good your computer is, whatever. I'm just going to let that run while we're doing all this other stuff. We're going to also install DB Browser for SQLite. By the way, you don't need to do these in this specific order. I'm just doing them in kind of a random order here as things run. Kind of click through that installer, let it do whatever. That's installed. Git's almost done installing. We're going to install XAMPP. I'm going to view release notes. I'm going to hit finish. Okay, now both the XAMPP and Visual Studio will take quite a while to install, and once Visual Studio is done installing, you are going to need to restart your computer. Just click yes to all this crap. Oh, I've actually installed XAMPP here before, so if you do that and like failed an installation, you're gonna need to go here, just delete this folder, and then let this run again. Probably won't have to do that. Unclick this, some add, and just hit install. And you're gonna have to wait quite a while for both of these, so yeah, just kind of wait. Once they're done, you'll have to restart to get Visual Studio to initialize. And then I'll be back. I'm now back with Visual Studio, XAMPP, Git, all of that installed. And we need to now download and install the source code for Dark Flame Universe. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to navigate to my desktop and I'm going to start a command prompt here, which you can do this by just going to your desktop in File Explorer and then type CMD in the address bar. It'll open a command prompt there. I'm going to git clone recursive. You have to do recursive or else you will be missing all of the dependencies for DLU, so make sure you do that or else it will not work. And we're going to clone this. Might take a while depending on how good your internet is, so just give it a minute. Now after that's done, we're going to want to clone LCDR's utils, which we will be using for later. So you're going to do git clone and then it's github.com/lcdr/utils. I'm just going to copy that, paste that into my command prompt here. And it's going to clone that into the utils folder on my desktop. Okay, now what you've all been waiting for, building DLU. So we're going to open Visual Studio. May take a while to open, depending on if you've opened it before. I am not going to sign in. I'm going to set it up for dark mode, Visual C++. Do whatever you want there, I don't care. And as it's saying, it may take a few minutes the first time. Now once we're in, we're going to hit open a local folder, and we're going to go to desktop. We're going to select our Darkflame server folder, and we're going to open it. It may take a minute to open it the first time. That's okay. Okay, now once it is open, you can see it can't find a program to make Unix makefiles. So we are going to go up here, and we need to select Windows only configure settings. Once you've done this, it should start configuring, and it will tell you once it's done, so just give it a minute. Okay, now that it says that its configuration's done and its generation's finished, we are going to go over here to the left. We are going to right click on cmakelist.txt, and we are going to hit build. Now this part will take quite a while, even with a good computer. So just let it run, and it will tell you when it's done building. Okay, now that it says build succeeded down here, we know that it is built and linked and is finished. So I'm going to navigate to my Darkflame server folder and see here that it is done. All of my exes are here, but we are not done yet. We need to go to deps, MySQL lib64, and I am just going to take any and all DLLs in here, copy them, and then paste them into the build folder. And we're going to do the same thing for not zlib source, zlib build. We're going to get all the DLLs in here, copy them, and paste them into here. But we still are not done. So you see this res folder and this locale folder? First thing we're going to do, this is where your client comes into play. We're going to go to locale on our client, copy locale.xml right into the locale folder, and then we are going to need a few folders from this res folder, which are outlined in the DLU README. You're going to need macros, brick models, chat plus enus.txt, names, maps, and we're also going to do something with nav meshes in a minute. So I'm going to select macros, brick models, names, maps, and then chat plus enus. I'm going to copy those, and then I'm going to paste those into my build res folder. Okay, now I'm going to go back a bit, and I'm going to go to the resources, and then there's this file named navmeshes.zip. I'm going to open this. I use 7-zip, you can probably use the default Windows thing. And there's going to be a navmesh folder in here. So we're going to take that and we're going to put it in our res/maps folder. So in res/maps, there should be a folder named navmeshes. And it'll look like this. This will just, if you don't do this, it's not like critical, but it will make the AI of your enemies a lot better and their pathfinding a lot better. And then there is one final step we need to do with this res folder. We need to open our LCDR utils folder, wherever you put it. Go into the utils directory, and then there's going to be a file in here named fdb to SQLite.py. And then we're going to go to our client res folder. We're going to find cdclient.fdb. There's a way to do this in command line, but it's a lot easier to just drag cdclient.fdb on top of fdb to SQLite. It's going to open this window, and it's going to take a minute, but it's going to convert our FDB to a SQLite format, which is readable by the DLU server. Okay, now once we have this cdclient.SQLite file, we're going to drag this into our res folder and build this res, and you're going to need to rename it to cd server. Now, once you've done this, we are going to set up our database. So we're going to run XAMPP which we installed earlier. And we're going to start up Apache and MySQL. Once you've done this, it should be hosting a web server on your local computer. So you can go into your web browser and do localhost/phpMyAdmin. And this will give you a database panel. So we are going to go to New, and then we're going to create a new database. I'm going to call it Dark Flame. You can call it whatever you want. Now, we have our migrations folder, which stumps a lot of people. There are some migrations we're going to have to apply to CD server in a minute, but for now we're just going to do the DOU database migrations. So we're going to import this file named 0initial.sql from Darkflame server migrations DOU. In the future there could be more of these files, and you just want to apply them in order. So you want to go 0, then 1, then 2. You get what I mean? So once we've added this, we're just going to hit go, and with enough luck, everything will just work. So that is our migrations for our DOU database. But now we need to open DB browser for SQLite. And once that's open, we're going to go to our build res folder and our CD server. We're going to open that. So we're going to go to execute SQL right here. And then we're going to go to our migrations folder again. And there's a folder named CD server. And just like I said before, we're going to apply these in numerical order. So I'm going to drag 0 into footrace in, run it, one fix overbuild, run it, and then the script component, run it. Might take a bit. Once it's done, make sure you go to File and then do Write Changes. Then you can close this. It's going to ask you if you want to make a new project file. I'm not going to. There's probably no point in it. Discard. Okay, we are almost done. There's one more thing we need to do. So we're going to go to our build folder, and in here we're going to have to put in some configuration for our database. So our host is going to be localhost, that's our local computer, and then the database is whatever you named the database in here earlier. I named mine Darkflame, so I'm going to put Darkflame in here. And then the default username for XAMPP is going to be root, and there's going to be no password, so you're just going to leave that blank. Now I'm going to save this auth config file. I'm just going to copy this block because we're just going to need to paste that into every single one of these config files. So we're going to go from auth config, chat config, copy paste that, save it. We're going to go to master config, copy paste that, save it. We're going to go to world config and then copy paste it and save it. And then we need to make an admin account for us to actually log into DOU. So I'm going to rename this, or I'm going to open a command prompt in here. And this is outlined in the README as well. You need to do, let's see, master server A, the A flag. So we're going to do master server.exe and A, and it should prompt us to enter a username for our admin account. Might take a little bit there. So I'm just going to do test, and I'm going to put in the password as test, and it should have created an admin account. You can check that here in phpMyAdmin if you go to your database and then go to accounts. See, I have an account here named test, and this is the hashed version of test. Okay, now you are ready to run Darkflame Universe. So you're going to want to just run master server because that will run all of the other servers you need automatically. See, it spawned all of them automatically. Just going to minimize most of these. Then I'm going to open my client. And depending on where you got the client, boot.cfg might not be configured how you like it. So we're going to need to change patch server IP and auth server IP to localhost. If they are not localhost, this will not work well. Oh, additionally, there is an issue where if you don't start a local web server that will return 404 on everything, then your brick building will crash the client. So this is also outlined in the README. So what I'm going to do to fix this is do exactly what they said here. I'm going to open a command prompt, and I'm going to do pi, because that is the name of my Python installation on Windows in my path. Do pi, and then im http.server 80. Oops, I spelled that wrong. And then it's going to run an HTTP server. And as long as I keep this in the background and I have my patch server IP set to localhost, everything should be good. And I shouldn't encounter any crashes. So now, moment of truth. Will it work? I'm going to start the client. So I'm going to put in my username test, my password test. Then it's going to let me through. I'm going to make a new character. And then I'm going to hit play. Going to let it load into the world just to make sure it's working fully. But it should be all you need to do to set up Darkflame on native Windows. And look at that, it's working. Okay, so now I'm going to give some further instruction on how exactly you are to update this server if there are ever any updates, which there are fairly often to the source code here. So what you're going to want to do to upgrade the server is you're going to need to go to your Darkflame server folder, and then you're going to open a command prompt here, and you're going to type git space pull, and that should pull the latest changes. As you can see here, I'm already up to date because there hasn't been an update since I downloaded it, but if there are any changes, this will download all of them. And once you've downloaded all the changes, that's not the end of it. You're going to need to open it up in Visual Studio again, and you're going to need to right click and hit build again. As you can see, there were no changes, so there's no work to do, and the build just already finished. But if there were changes, it would rebuild. And that's what you need to do to upgrade it. I think that's it. So have fun running Darkflame on Windows. There's really no reason you should be running it on Windows besides as a development environment or just as a testing environment. So keep that in mind. It's probably not the wisest idea to run a server for your friends from your Windows PC. The best option for that would be something like Google Cloud or like a dedicated server. And it would be a lot easier to set up on Linux. So yeah, have fun.